Senator Inhofe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I think some of the things I was going to say have been articulated in a more effective way, I think, by my friend Senator Lee, and I agree with all of his comments. I also would say, you know, it seems like, and I served for many years as chairman of the Environment Public Works Committee, you can't have a hearing anymore without everyone bringing up global warming. I mean, that's the issue that I like to bring up. I have to say this because I don't have a better friend on the other side of the aisle than Senator Udall, but this 97% stuff, that's been debunked completely, and everybody knows that. So I like to listen to when you talked about this consensus. Richard Lindzen from the MIT is one of the most knowledgeable persons in this area. He is a scientist. And he said that in characterizing the problem, he said controlling carbon is a bureaucrat's dream. If you control carbon, you control people. And, you know, and so we can have that debate anytime you want to, and we've had it over and over again. It's interesting, though, the people of America have caught on. I can remember back when they had the polling, it used to be back in about 02 and 03, it was the #1 or #2 issue on the Gallup poll, March poll that they would have. That's dropped down to number 15 now, and so the people have caught on. Let me just, I think there's some things that I'd like to get back, I think are significant, having to do with your pursuit of this position. One, when they talk about the members of Congress, it's easy to, it would be an asset to have, I think, someone who's been a member of Congress. You got to keep in mind, NASA has to come to Congress to get their funding, get their appropriation, get their authorization. And I would think that all of us here, one common thread is we're all very excited about the future of NASA and what we could do. I'm concerned, I want to be ahead of some of these other countries out there that I believe have passed us up in many areas. That's the passion that I have. So I think that, and we talked about James Webb and of course what he did, and I think we all understand that. But I would just say this, I think it's a positive, particularly when you're trying to get the attention of Congress to support NASA, to have been a member of Congress. What do you think?
Well, I think that's accurate, sir. I think one of the benefits that I could bring to the agency is the fact that I have worked in these halls with many members of Congress on both sides of the aisle to accomplish very important strategic objectives for our country. And when you think about what the NASA administrator's role will be in the coming years, working with the National Space Council and working with the Office of Management and Budget and working with the White House, and of course working to build a consensus agenda with members of Congress on both sides, the Senate and the House. I think that my experience has prepared me well to be able to accomplish those things. And certainly it would be a high honor if I were to be confirmed to do that.
Yeah. You know, we both served on, served on the House Armed Services Committee. I've served on and been the ranking member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And I really believe, and I have heard and statements even from you, that looking at the threats that we face today, we're in the most threatened position, I believe, in the history of our country. When we have the other, you look back at the days of the Cold War, two superpowers, we knew what they had, they knew what we had. That's not that way anymore. And so I think that I look at one of the functions of NASA to be concerned with and working on the fact that we have a real threat out there. Do you have any ideas on what you, as an administrator, should you be confirmed, could draw upon your experience as a member of the House Armed Services Committee that would be helpful in combating, working on our national security?
Yes, sir, and not just from my time on the Armed Services Committee, but also as a Navy pilot. I can tell you one of the greatest risks we have in the world today, from an aircraft carrier perspective, is hypersonics. Basically, what we call anti-access aerial denial weapons that can reach, our assets far distances and at velocities that are very dangerous. So where NASA plays, and I want to be really clear, NASA is not a military agency. It is an agency that is necessary for the peaceful uses of outer space. But what the research NASA has done can lead to are capabilities that can be used by the Department of Defense. Hypersonics, in my view, sir, is probably the most important right now, and the Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate at NASA is responsible for that. And if I could ask you for anything, sir, it would be that we need to make sure that that's adequately funded. Basic research is what NASA does for its own purposes, but there are national security implications from hypersonics. I would also say one of the areas I've had a lot of focus on in the House of Representatives is the challenge we have with space debris. There's a lot of threats in space, but it's not just hostile threats. It's not just co-orbital anti-satellite devices or direct ascent anti-satellite missiles. It also includes just debris that was launched in the 1960s. And so what we have to do is we have to create a situational awareness domain to where we can mitigate the effects of that debris. Right now, and this is a big piece for the Armed Services Committee, it's all done by the JSPOC, the Joint Space Operations Center in Vandenberg Air Force Base, and it's done by them, our Air Force. I should say it's a joint command because it's under Strategic Command, so it's joint, but it's predominantly Air Force. And the challenge that we have is that the Air Force is providing space situational awareness to the entire world for absolutely free. And that includes our foreign partners, but also countries that are sometimes not friendly to the United States and all of the commercial assets. And in essence, the Air Force right now is acting as the FAA for space. I want to be clear. The Air Force must continue to do space situational awareness. But as far as providing conjunction analysis and reporting, that should be done by a civilian agency that has international support, primarily because it's not the job of the American taxpayer to protect the assets of countries that are often hostile to the United States.
Yeah, I know my time's expired. Just one comment. There's been a lot of talk about Jim Bridenstine from people who don't really know him very well. I have the distinction of knowing him better than anyone else at this table. And let me just say to my friends on both sides of the aisle, I support him because I believe he's going to be the very best administrator that we will have. I think we'll look back at this time someday. And I would just say to you, if you knew him as I know him, you would be very supportive. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Inhofe.